Hi, everybody. I'm gonna switch the camera. We're gonna probably have more trouble with the stream today because they had to update. Maybe they hired some people from Microsoft. So they're really good at updating without beta testing. Um, so we're having a little trouble getting moderators in because, well, Sugar says it's StreamYard's fault, so she's always right, and she's the one that's holding the ring of power. So, whoops. Oh well, there she goes. She dropped it.
Hello, Shuggy, Miss Ring of
Would you
Paris.
would you like Isildur's Bane back, or are you done with it? You're done with it? You don't want the Ring of Power? You don't read Ancient Elvish? Okay. Yeah, this is what when I was a computer guy going around fixing people's problems, I always left those a couple of days free when Microsoft would update because you'd end up with nothing but problems. People couldn't get their email, their system wouldn't start, all that kind of fun stuff. So I would leave those days because they always published when they were going to do it. It usually was a Tuesday, Tuesday at midnight. So Wednesday, I would have a lot of jobs. So I would try to avoid scheduling jobs for Wednesday and Thursday because knew I would have plenty of them. I wouldn't, I could pick and choose which one to go to. Same thing seems to be happening with StreamYard. They updated, now we're having trouble. So Amy can't get in the way she's supposed to get in. It won't let her in that way. So Sugar says it is StreamYard's fault. What are you doing over there? If you do that, it bothers Sugar. I don't think that you care, though, do you? Cecil, do you care? No. If you do move that too much, you'll end up falling through. Too bad you don't understand English. He's a little perturbed with me because he's been, unfortunately, the cage he's in is the only one I have that has bead welds on it. And he's decided, since he can reach the paper, to just make a horrible mess of the bottom of his cage. And it's not sanitary the way he does it. So I've had to take the paper out, and I just have to clean the trays a couple of times a day. But he's not happy about it, and you can kind of see it in his face. Kind of. Right? Right, little boy? Nutcase. You're a nutcase. And, nesting could affect his attitude too, and he's just gotten too much into it. So now he goes down there and looks like, where's my paper? Where's my paper? So what I'm going to have to do, and it's not going to be easy, I got to raise his cage up, and I've ordered some furniture. Actually, what they are is they're meant to go under furniture that has rollers, and they just raise it up 5 inches, and then I got to drop his trays down so that he can't reach them, and then I have to put wire around to keep him from getting out. So it's a major project. See, I already broke one of the bars off his wires that go across the bottom of his cage. Probably couldn't have done that if that cage hadn't been through a fire once, but it has. Went through a fire, then got powder coating, got stripped off, and it got coated again. But some of those welds just aren't as strong as they were. You found one, didn't you?
So, hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So hello and welcome to everybody watching, and let's welcome some of our chatters. So welcome to Calvin Thurston, Kaisi, welcome Falkensu and Rosebud, and Lisa Banerjee. Great to have you here, everybody.
Hey guys, you want to talk? You want to say hello? KK, you say hello? Er, that's a hello. JK can say hello.
He
I
was a
can't.
chatterbox yesterday.
He's been talking today, but he's been mumbling a lot. So why don't you say something? Huh? He probably would if he thought I'd put the paper back in his cage. But I heard that, KK. Now, we're going to talk today about the tricks that your mind plays on you. And the one that I usually tell for this is where my dad, maybe he saw women cut him off on the road or driving erratically 4 or 5 times in a row. And so after that, he would always say woman driver, even though men were doing the same thing. He wouldn't notice them. And don't blame him, because how many times have you thrown the keys, like thrown the keys on your table, and then you're looking for your keys and you know they can't be on the table, but you look and you don't see them and they're staring you right in the face. This is something the human mind can do. It just obliterates things. So you may say, well, a bird only screams when I leave the room, but there are many other times it's doing it. So we'll talk about that. But this hampers our ability to make changes in their behavior because we think we know what's going on and we don't. And I'm guilty of it like everybody else. It's a feature of the human mind, not a bug. We have Jasmine awake for the beginning of the meeting. That's unusual. And this little one started up on the coverts around her primary and secondaries. And when you see one of those things sticking out, you have to raise the dosage of her medicine. She's getting ready to start tearing into herself, and I had to raise up her dosage. So just a little bit, just enough to stop it, but and just in the news, I joined basically a veterinary group online they're connected with the people who've been studying what used to be called PDD, and before that it was called macaw wasting disease, also called avian bornavirus. Well, now it's not. It's avian ganglioneuritis. It's an they now know that it is a autoimmune disease. So at some point we'll talk about that. I've only watched the first. I'm busy, so I've watched the first 23 minutes of the veterinarian group that has been studying this talk about it. So we're starting to get some medicines now that actually work. So that's good news for the community, isn't it, KK Bird?
It is. And can we start with a long question from Kaisi? On?
Yes, I'm trying to look at it. Thank you. Yeah,
I can
yeah.
also I can read it to you. It's over several um, comments.
Yeah, why don't you do that? It's kind of hard when I'm doing this to read. So
Okay,
come on. No, that
I read it. After little girl passed away, we bought a new parrotlet. Her name is Peppa. Then she got mated with the boy Atreus. So we have two parrotlets who are mated with each other. Last year we got other four parrotlets, two couples, but one of the couples didn't get well, so they are not mated with each other. The situation now is very bad. Atreus and Peppa are a couple, but Petri, the other male, is chasing Peppa and causing fights with Atreus. Lumi is alone, she plays by herself and does not have a partner. Atreus' both eyes already got injured short times ago. Now they are healed, but today they fought again. And Atreus' two toenails are gone, and his toes were bleeding so bad Patrick got injured too. One foot was bleeding. Now both of the injuries are healed a bit. Tomorrow we are going to take them to the vet, but we are thinking about sending Petri away because he constantly chooses to fight with Atreus. We still hope there is a way we can keep Petri. Do you have advice on what we could do?
That's a tough one. Having birds of different sexes, you can see it's a problem for me, and I have all that training, but especially small birds like those, it's hard to stop them. They go from place to place without much uh, consultation with you. These big guys move. They can move fast when they want to, but that's not their mode to flip from place to place. Um, I would never recommend getting, birds of the different different sexes because it does create problems like you're talking about. But no, probably rehoming is your best bet. Um, if you have a bird that doesn't want to fit in that, I mean, it is tough. I have the training; it would be difficult for me. I could do it, but it would be difficult. Your best bet in this case is probably to rehome the one that's causing the issues. But um, sad to say, without professional level training, that kind of thing is hard. And even then, you got to watch it. I mean, I've had some injuries around here. I'm on it pretty quick, but still. Um, Good example is Lucy's the her eye. He didn't get her eye, but he got close to her close to it. So there's some nerve damage there, and now she doesn't always get to open her eye all the way. So you won't see Lucy and Bob in the same room. You might see him in the same aviary, but you won't see it because he won't do that in the aviary. But no, that's my advice. Just if you don't have training in ABA, then uh, finding a good home for the bird that's causing trouble, and try not to get pairs in the future. They don't always want to pair up. I mean, I could put you in a room with somebody, right? Just throw somebody in there and say, okay, you two are a pair now. Probably wouldn't work out terribly well. So they choose their own mates in the wild. I don't have any better advice than that, unfortunately.
So, do you think that is causing the problem that there are two mated pairs and then there is a male and a female who are not mated to each other, and that causes the not mated male to cause trouble?
Yeah, in the wild, what they will do is if a male isn't mated, he may try to steal a mate from somebody else, and it causes all kinds of aggression. So um, that's been biologists have watched that happen. It's in one of the books I have. The Parrots of Lochio talks about that situation, but it's not common, but it does happen, and they've actually seen it in the wild. So yeah, a loose male like that's going to be a problem, but I don't like to see birds paired up at all because there are behavioral issues just being paired. And Snowball's not never gotten over the loss of Chloe, so and he hasn't because he'll sit and stare at like he used to when right after she died. He'll stare outside like that. Where is she? You know?
I think with parrotlets, it's pretty common practice to have them in pairs until now, so far I'm informed.
Yeah, it's pretty common practice to for the United States to go out and start wars too, but that doesn't make it the right thing, you know. Um, yeah, common practice has nothing to do with it. Just because it's done by other people, monkey see, monkey do is what we call that. So I don't subscribe to that. So common or not, well, it's common in the United States to get married, but 4 out of 5 marriages fail in the first 5 years. So there's a lot of those. Um, yeah, common practice doesn't mean anything. It's common practice to put them in cages and
Oh,
steal them
I don't
from the
haven't
wild.
named that as justification, but just that wherever one gets probably word people and meet them, or so they say, oh yeah, that's not a problem, and that's actually the problem, that
Yeah,
you
you're
get all
right.
this misinformation. And I cannot say much about that because I don't have any information about parrotlets at all, so I cannot say something about it. Sorry.
Yeah, parrotlets, they can get into the same aggressive issues. If you're going to have more than one bird, I would stick to budgerigars because they're used to living in huge flocks and they tend to get along. But and they're great birds too. So um, as soon as you start getting into parrots, even parrotlets, you're talking about. I mean, obviously a budgerigar is a parrot, but when you get into something like parrotlets, you're dealing with other issues. They're not quite as social in large groups. Yeah, maybe having a pair of them, you might get along okay, but not two pairs or two pairs and a couple of singles. That's asking for issues. So even budgies sometimes will fight. I've seen that too.
They
But
can if they want to. So it's pretty rare, but sometimes there are actually, it occurs that two parties cannot stand each other.
yeah, I've seen it where budgies will pick on one too. That's because that one has something wrong with it that you we can't see, but they can. Um, they see into the fluorescence, so they can see if a bird's not that healthy, or we might not be able to tell. So an unhealthy bird may appear, I can't keep my leg up like that all day, kid. I can try. An unhealthy bird may appear to us to be normal, but with their eyes looking at the fluorescence, it might be dull feathers to them, and that means they're not healthy, so they pick on it. Yeah, if you got an unmated male in that situation, I would find another home for it. Preferably somebody who wants a bird that just wants one bird. And you get that situation where you have a male and a female, but they don't want to be a pair. I mean, we're trying to force birds into a pair, and they get to choose their mate, just like most people do. So maybe it's not for the same reasons, but they do definitely choose their mates.
Mm.
Some species are less picky about it. Some species are quite picky about it.
The, with budgies, they usually don't fight over the females. It's more like they both annoy the female, and the female chooses one or no one. But usually the males get along pretty fine. So it's not like that's my female. It's something different if they're actually mated and a male appears, so they chase it away. But um, Yeah, mostly budgies are not that kind of violent. I mean, even my budgies sometimes have little arguments and actually pick at each other, but never in a really aggressive way. So sometimes they indicate like, oh, I don't like that, but they never really go for each other.
Parrotlets are not quite that way, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I say I cannot say something about parrotlets because I have not much information about them, not reading or anything else. So
Mine comes mostly
sadly,
from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology because I studied parrotlets because they were studying them when they found out that they actually give names to their offspring. A female gives a name to each baby, and they have different names.
um,
That's where I
it,
started learning about parrotlets. So
mm, we are just discussing the practice that Kaisi got the advice after having one couple of parrotlets that she should get at least two further couples. So three couples work out best, and obviously it doesn't. So that's the problem. Sometimes you get advice that doesn't work. It's probably uninformed. So people are just like, yeah, that they tell you something and it's not true. So
back in the old days, we had a thing
sadly
called
it has not worked out. And now we are discussing what's the best practice with parrotlets. And Kaiser says just to get one male and one female. And I think maybe the best practice is to have them in a big flock until they have chosen their mate and then get the couple. So basically give them the opportunity to choose their mate and then adopt a couple. So I think that's probably the best practice if one wants to have a couple. So
Yeah, I still don't think it's a good idea to have a couple, but if you're going to adopt them, find a rescue that has a couple already and get one that way. The idea of buying birds in couples because it's a common practice is not a good thing. You start losing, you see a lot of parrots missing toes, and that's usually why. But
mm,
they could also be killed by the other bird too. So
yeah, that's why I advise to have them strictly separated in two cages and have the cages apart from another so they actually cannot reach each other through the bars for now. And if you have them outside, only supervised and not together. So I think that's basically the only thing which can be done for now. The only other thing is if you have a friend who knows how to deal with parrots and can basically foster the little troublemaker until you found a better solution.
yeah, and it's not the fault of the male that's doing that. It's a species related thing, fairly common to parrots that if they don't have a mate and they want one, they will try to steal it from someone else, and that usually means attacking either the female or the male. Usually they'll go for the male, but it depends on the species and the individual bird which one they go for. So um, there, when I used to do IRC chat, this is way before most people have never heard of it, but it's still out there. You can still chat with people that way. There's a button you could press where you could slap someone with a large trout. In other words, when somebody's saying something you don't like, but it's not so bad, you kick them out of the room, you hit them, you slap them with a big trout, right? So when someone tells you something like, "Oh, you should have, three pairs," slap them with the big trout right across the kisser. You know, people have the weirdest ideas of what's right and what's wrong with parrots. I don't know. Not your fault though. I mean, you're following advice, but try to get advice
That's
if
the
you
thing.
can.
One thinks one have found somebody who knows something, and then has to learn it the hard way. So we are really sorry for you, Kaise, after your loss having now that
Yeah,
kind of trouble.
that's horrible. But your best bet is to simply get rid of the male. that's causing the problem.
That sounds a little bit hard, Don, to adopt into somebody else.
Well, it's either that or watch some of your birds die or be maimed. You've
Yeah.
got a choice, right? It is a little harsh, but you have to do these things sometimes.
No, I mean
Um,
to get rid can be misinterpreted as like we have chicken for dinner now.
oh no, 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 not that. Of course not. It's not good for the male bird either in that situation. And I'm not blaming the bird. It's a species related thing, If you don't have a mate, you're looking for one. You don't want this other one. You're gonna try to steal one from somebody else,
Mhm.
and then you start
So
losing toes. And no,
let's greet King of Memes. He is coming from India and is watching us. So hello and welcome. And then Lisa has a question. She wants to know who is playing on the side on your side, Dawn. Is it Cecil?
this is KK hitting by my side. Cecil is playing on the post
Maybe
over
we can
there.
do a little bird tour, or have we introduced everybody? I just see
Uh,
that Jasmine is having a good time today,
that's
doing more
KK.
than ever.
That's Cecil. No, Cecil. No, stop that. You're going to hurt yourself. That thing can fall and you can get squished. No. And there's Jasmine. And of course, the sugar. And Lucy Bird up on top. Snowball. And Peppa. And later on, the rest of the crew comes out. So Mander comes out with sugar and Jasmine and Lorelei will be out here at that time too, and Lucy. Snowball can't be out with Lucy. He's got mate aggression, so he's mate aggressive to females. If there aren't enough birds in the room, he'll become aggressive. So not his fault. But. So one of the things that the human mind does, it's like I was talking about my dad. He would always say woman driver. That's because the first few times he saw somebody do something stupid on the road, it was a woman. So he wouldn't notice the men doing it. And this is called, it's a kind of cognitive bias. Okay. And hold on a second. I'm trying to get, um, it's called confirmation bias. Okay. And that's when you tend to notice something or remember something that supports what you already believe. Okay. That's why when you look on the table and you're looking for your keys, you got to drive out. You got to leave the house and you can't find your keys. Well, I didn't leave them on the table, and you're looking right at the table and you don't see them. And the reason you don't see them is because you have that cognitive bias, right? You're supporting what you already believe. You believe they're not on the table, so you don't see them. So it really means that your brain just wants to be right. So much that it picks and chooses what information it's going to actually pay attention to. So you can be looking right at something and not see it. And that's tough with birds because what happens is you assign a certain belief. Well, my bird only screams when I leave the room. And then, when you're sitting there and the bird starts screaming because your friend John comes over, comes through the door and the bird screams for a while, you don't even hear it. You just tune it out. In fact, if your friend John goes, "What's wrong with the bird?" You'll have a dull look on your face, like, I don't know. Because in your mind, your bird only screams when you leave the room. That's why my first professor teaching ABA specifically about birds was, she said, you video and you look at the video and you look at it again and you look at it again because you're just going to miss it. And go back to that little 2-minute video I talk about. who done it. And if you have ever seen that video, you know by the end of that video that you're not really paying attention. You think you are, but you aren't, okay? So this type of bias is extremely common, and it's made worse by the fact that the media tends to propagandize us with advertisements and stuff and make us, you know, well, obviously this particular brand is better than another, and when you walk down the aisle in a grocery store, you buy it because that's the one you keep seeing on TV, even if the advertisement is the dumbest thing you've ever seen in your life. It's because in this case you have recognition for it and you don't see the other things because your mind says, oh, that's the best. Why? I don't know why, but it's just the best because I've seen the name. There was a company back in the 60s that sold coffee, and they were, I can't even remember the name of the company, but they were on top, the best coffee in the country. And they said, we don't need to advertise. And now nobody knows their name. So it's basically we advertise to ourselves. You see a bird do something and you assume something about that behavior. You assume that when we're looking at Pippa, she's half asleep up here. Okay, when Pippa's half asleep, she's never attacks anybody. So when she starts to make a move to defend her territory, you don't see it at first. And why don't you see it? Because you said she doesn't attack other birds when she's half asleep on the perch. So you see how that sets you up for failure? It really does. And then you get the same kind of thing like what happened to Kaisei. To have someone telling you that, oh, you really want multiple pairs. Well, maybe that worked in their world. Maybe they got lucky, or they knew a couple of people that got lucky and had that many pairs and everything was fine. But that's not always going to be the case. And actually, it's not usually the case. But once you hear it and it sits in your head, then you think, well, I've got to have, 3 pairs. Again, it becomes a kind of cognitive bias that somebody else put in your head. And we're used to it. We become inured to it that when you're looking, you're getting an advertisement. Most people just, they just listen. It's too much trouble to keep turning the volume off, right? Or skipping past an ad. So they just listen to them. And then they sit in the back of the mind and they create this type of cognitive dissonance, okay? Where you should know that just because you saw an advertisement, it doesn't make us the greatest product in the world. There are probably better ones. The same thing in the bird world. You see Sugar sitting up there. Most people watching Sugar would think that Sugar is just quiet, doesn't do a lot. She just sits on the perch. Well, that's not the way she is all day. She plays in her cage. She gets on the bottom of it and plays with toys. She climbs around the top of it. She's pretty busy in her cage. She does have times when she sits like this, but she's pretty busy. But most people seeing Sugar would think, oh, I could walk and leave Sugar in here and with the door open, it wouldn't be a problem. Yeah, you do that and you know what you find? You find her sitting in her cage. She will just get down, go walk up and get in her cage if you leave her in here with the door open. So in this case, your cognitive bias would have you believing that she's just going to be like this most of the time. She's not. That's just what you guys watching us get to see. So if you have a bird that bites or it screams or it has some other behavior you don't care for, you're probably missing a good portion of what's going on. And I do it. I miss it. I'm trained and I still miss it. I have to go over and over and over it in my head and watch again and again to try to figure it out because it's a human frailty. It's the way the human brain is wired. Is that so, KK? Are you sure? Are you sure about that? So that's why I say journal. And I know I just heard recent statistics that in the United States, for example, the literacy rate is only 74%, which is one of the lowest in the world. It's much higher in Indonesia, okay? Closer to 99% in Indonesia. Imagine that. You wouldn't expect it, right? And of that 74%, 54% read at a sixth grade level or lower. If you go by the median, that means that of that 54%, a good 25% to 27% read at a third grade level. So that means it's hard to get people to sit down and write a journal, but you need to do that. Otherwise, you have to be listening. Is my bird screaming? Write it down. Is my bird screaming? When? The time of day. You want the time of day, and you want the place and what's going on. Okay, it can just be something simple. John entered the room. So and so left. And then after you've been journaling for a while, you get an idea of when those behaviors are actually happening. What are you doing eating that? Don't eat the chair. Stop it. You're not supposed to eat the chair. Don't look at me like I took the paper out of your cage. I did. I know. But you're making a mess and it's not sanitary. The mess is acceptable. The sanitary part is not. So that's why I say to keep do a journal, and then I take video if I can of a situation. So when it keeps recurring, and then look at the video over and over again until I start to see what's actually going on. Yeah, Rosebud, I see that. Yeah, it's pretty shocking. But I've dealt with enough people now that I know that they just don't teach you an appreciation for reading. And and it's not like I got taught. I was just a little fat kid that nobody wanted to talk to. So I read a lot of books. I mean, I would go through a sci-fi book one a day. I would read whatever book I could find. When I was in high school, I spent a lot of time, anytime I had a break, in the library reading the encyclopedia. So I got a lot of my understanding of the English language, written language at least, from just sitting down and reading. But hard to do with these guys. If it's paper, they'll eat it. Right, Sugar?
She looks so
Oh,
cute.
I got the answer from KK, though. He answered me. She's just sitting up there. Oh, yeah, but your brain, your bias in your brain would tell you that she just sits like that all day long, but she doesn't. You only see her in this one circumstance where she tends to do that. And she usually doesn't come over begging when we're doing a live to get her beak petted, but a lot of times she's like bending down, constantly requesting I pet her beak. I'll do it for 5 minutes, stop for 10, go back for another 5, and it'll go on like that for 2 hours. So I have to give her breaks. She doesn't want them, but I have to. Besides, she wears my arm out. So when you think that your bird always does something in just that situation, you need to start journaling because your brain's going to lie to you. It's like those keys on the table. They're not there. Well, yes, they are, but you tuned it out. The human brain is good about that. It's probably the only brain on the planet that makes fantasies about reality. Get away from that. You're not eating it. Come here. He wants to eat the tapestry now. No, no, get down. Get down. You're not eating the tapestry. Well, I have to keep taking you down because I can see that you start picking at it. I don't want you to start eating the tapestry. It's nice to have a little jungle look for you, isn't it?
What cute sneezes.
Other thing, yeah, yeah. Pippa and her sneezing since we moved to the desert. Now there's something that's a funny note. When I was talking to this vet in Las Vegas, he was saying, "Well, it really can't be allergies because they don't get allergies." And I said, "So do we have a test to check to see if they have an allergy?" And he said no. And then I just looked at him until he finally turned away because he was basically telling me we don't know, but we just don't accept that they do. Talk about confirmation bias. you know, I was looking right at a vet who was, is exhibiting it, and I'm not saying that doesn't know quite a bit about birds, but that's one thing he doesn't know. We don't know if they have allergies. We don't know. No one's devised any testing for that. She may have an allergy to something here, but as long as I keep the humidity up, this is through observation, keep as much dust out of the air as I possibly can. She has a big fan right next to her cage to suck the dust in to keep it from her. Vacuum up the floor regularly. She doesn't sneeze as much. So that's easy for you to say. Now, some other examples of confirmation bias, oh, my bird only likes me. It doesn't like anyone else. There's one of those bad bad human thoughts. It doesn't. I have met a lot of birds. A good example, there was a green-winged macaw, and her caretaker we were at the Renaissance Fair with a number of people who had birds, and I was standing next to this bird, and she had her back to me, and she was telling these people, "Oh, my bird won't let anybody pick up. It only likes me." So I went and picked up Claude and was holding Claude on my arm. And she turned around and you could just see her face fell because I had broken the confirmation bias. This bird only likes me and you're not going to do it, so get down from there. No, no. You are a tricky bird. You're smart. Yes, you are, but you're not going to chew that. You're not going to chew it. No. Nope. So that's one you see. My bird only likes me. So So what you'll notice in this case is Claude let me pick him up, right? And or maybe the bird will take treats from others. Um, but it doesn't fit into your story, right? Your story is I'm the only one this bird likes. So my parrot never bites me, it only bites everyone else. You don't know whenever your bird nips you though, you don't count that. You don't even see it. Oh, that's not it didn't bite me. Even though it did, right? Your brain tunes it out. It's like the keys on the table. Where are my car keys? You know they're not on the table, so you can't see them. It's the same thing with this. I hope this makes sense. Um, I've heard this one. My bird hates toys. It just destroys them. Okay, that's what they do in the wild. They destroy things. That's how they play. They tear up branches. They find things to play with. like those ones in Australia that found something like a lid, and they were sliding down the roof on this lid like it was a sled, and then the other one would pick it up and slide down the roof, and they'd go back and forth sliding down the roof, right? Just one after the other. So so the problem with confirmation bias is it's going to reinforce misunderstandings about the triggers that actually cause behavior. So if you think the bird only screams when you leave the room, then you don't know what triggers the screams. So until you figure that out, it's hard to deal with it, and it's hard to adapt the behavior to something else. Okay. So and you become less able to see the patterns in behavior that could help you work with your bird. So and again, that whodunit video will teach you a lot about your confirmation bias. That's for sure. A lot of the things I think I know are simply confirmation bias. I've seen it maybe 3 or 4 times in a row, and I start to assume that this is the way it's always going to be. I have to be careful with that when I'm looking at their poop. Usually, after you change the paper, you come back in an hour and see what their poop is like. And you really have to look at it. If I'm not sure, I just take a picture of it, hand it over to Chat GPT, and ask it if there's any kind of an issue. But you don't want to get into a habit of that looks normal without really looking at it, because there might be something going wrong and you're not going to see it because you've seen good looking droppings for months. So of course it's going to be a good looking dropping. Let's see somewhat. I'm trying to look and see what people are talking about here.
Mostly about reading.
Yeah, Eleanor talking about how being an avid reader. I was when I was young. It's hard to find good books too. That's another thing. I mean, I like science fiction, but there's there aren't a lot of great science fiction books, or even some fantasy books are pretty good, but a lot of them are just no characterization. There's no dramatic crescendo. The characters are all two dimensional, and that can turn you off. You find a good book like Red Rising. Uh, that one doesn't grip you. You're in trouble because it starts, I mean, from the very beginning. It should grab you by the throat. Um, I'll read anything though if it's a thriller. Of course, when I say read, I listen to them now because when I'm washing dishes and stuff. But any kind of reading or even listening to books is good for you. Reading is better, but I don't always have the time for it. I try to get some reading in every day. Right now, I'm studying avian ganglioneuritis. So now that we actually know what it is, I want to. Oh, there's something about avian ganglioneuritis, better known among the population as PDD. We're never going to call it that again, though. It isn't always caused by the avian bornovirus. And the reason it's called a bornovirus is because in a town called Borna in Germany, back in the late 1800s, there were some horses that got this. So I wasn't aware of that origin, but It's good that we're actually getting to a point now where there are researchers who have actually studied it enough and they followed it. The virus enters into a nerve. As it moves up the nerve, it irritates the outer lining of the nerve. When the outer lining of the nerve gets irritated, it the the white blood cells and T cells attack the actual fiber of the nerve. That's why it's an autoimmune disease. It's your own body attacking the virus. And the virus is trying to get into your brain. That's what it does. It goes up the nerve and and hides inside the brain in the neuron inside the brain. So now we have a potential path for palliative cures, medicine that can help, and then uh, cure is probably a long time off, but at least palliative care is there because we know it's autoimmune now. So, and there are some medicines that are starting to actually work. The ones that target autoimmune diseases. Imagine that. Oh, look, Sugar's waking up. She goes, "It's about that time."
This pretty bird coming over.
No, Sugar's waking up.
Oh, Shuggy is waking up.
Yeah, because she's gonna want some beak pets when we're done, so she's waking up.
Maybe we should play the Sugar sound track so she's coming over because Sugar likes hearing Sugar.
I would love to do that, but I'd have to try to switch the audio, and I'm afraid that StreamYard's got too many bugs in it right now.
No, don't do it.
That's it. That's why I said it reminded me of Microsoft because every time they released an update, it was more of a bug than an update. Made me a lot of money, and most of the geeks would wait a week or longer before they would put in an update. They never did the auto updates from Microsoft. They'd sit on them until all the issues were, well, not all, but most of the issues were worked out. I have no love for Microsoft or its products, so I would rather beat my head against a wall than use Microsoft Office. So I use a free product called LibreOffice now because Apple has broken their Pages app. I hate it. I won't even use it for anything. So you can't even copy and paste text into it. You have to put a text uh, rectangle in there, and then, oh, come on. It's a page. I should be able to drop my text on it. Yep, you can start to see it. Even Lucy's. She may look like she's completely asleep, but she's looking around. They're all getting ready to rock and roll. Nice wing you got there, kid. Oh, I didn't give anybody the update. We did get our vet here. She did examine all the birds, and she's gathering together the medicine we need. So it was funny though because I could tell the look on her and her assistant's face, that they were expecting a whole bunch of trouble here, and I was like, okay, one bird, next bird, next bird, next bird. This is really easy. They didn't like the stethoscope. I have to train them on stethoscopes. I didn't do that. I have one. I don't use it that much, and it's me, so it doesn't usually bother them. But when she brought out the stethoscope, and what? What's that? But nothing else bothered them. So, hey, 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 Peppa, 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 Peppa. You're not listening to me. Get down here. Get down here. Get down here. Come on. Leave them alone. Come here.
Finally,
Come
some
on.
pregnant trouble.
Come on. Leave them alone. He's not doing anything up there. Don't sit in my spot. Don't sit in my spot. That's how you get squished. Well, but you get squished. Well, you don't want to get squished. You're a KK. You're not supposed to be squished.
Lucy's crest was all up.
See, so why are you trying to get me to pet you when I'm holding him on my arm? How can I pet you like that?
Fourth
KK.
dimension.
I have to move my arm around to pet him because he's telling me to. Who's the trainer here, you or me? I think it's you. You guys. Well, don't forget we have merchandise that Amy created that's just sitting there waiting for you to get your wonderful little hands on it. Everything including Bob's boxers, which are popular. Pretty song from a pretty bird. Pretty song from a pretty bird. A jasmine, jazzy jazzbird. Thank you, Peppa, for behaving. Good girl. Good girl. The Jazzy Jazzbird Show. Well, thanks everybody for being here, and thank you, Amy, for moderating, even though it's
Eleanor
been
was
different.
helping moderating in the chat, so
Oh,
thank you for that.
thank you, Eleanor. Yeah, you sure about that? Are you sure? You are? You positive? Oh, yeah. Okay.
He's the sweetest. Thanks for the live stream, Don. Thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you, Amy and Eleanor. And I guess it's going to be Pippa taking us out. Say, Pippa, can you say goodbye? You say, that's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Ah.
Science knowledge only adds to the excitement, the mystery, and the awe of a flower.
Evidence is evidence. It's public. Everybody can look at the evidence and assess it, and eventually, if there's enough evidence, come to the same conclusion.
The Chloe Sanctuary for Parrots and Cockatoos, a nonprofit charity dedicated to the empowerment of captive parrots and public awareness.